clockwise, and
Hmm.
Avanisa told that clockwise is positive and counterclockwise is negative. So it's not generalized for everything, right? Because in two question 5, it was counterclockwise positive and clockwise negative. So
Yeah, so
it's not
it is not
generalized.
generalized. Okay. But the thing
Yes, sir.
is, if many people follow the same standard, then one more circles drawn by somebody would be understandable for other. But there is
Yes,
no
sir.
rule that either clockwise or anti-clockwise has to be positive or negative, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
one convention you can follow, but
Yes.
any convention is okay. It's like electron and positron. So
Mm,
there is no
yes.
meaning of positive or negative charge, but it is there. Okay.
Yes.
Anything else? Charvak, Kanupriya, Batao, how is the course? Are you liking the course or do you have some questions? You want something to change? Any doubt with the lab report? It's a lab report mein for tensile testing. Instructions are clear, no?
यस सर. सर फिर हमें मिलता
Okay.
नहीं है कभी भी, मतलब पूरा वैल्यू यंग्स मॉडुलस का. आई मीन आपने बोला
क्या
कि वी
मतलब?
गेट 10% ऑफ द ओरिजिनल यंग्स मॉडुलस.
That I'm going to discuss today. But have you calculated? Have you guys? I'm sorry, I have not
यस
seen the
सर.
reports so far. But have you
यस सर
calculated
बिकॉज
the Young's models?
यस सर.
Okay. So how much are you getting?
सर 19,600 समथिंग फॉर इंजीनियरिंग स्ट्रेस and strain, and
Hmm.
for true stress and strain it was around 20,000 sir. मतलब it was a little bit higher.
Yes, sir. I also got around 19.5 thousand.
Sir, but
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
got
that is right.
20,400 something for engineering stress.
So approximately 20,000. It
Yes sir.
depends which data you are selecting for representation. थोड़ा बहुत error तो आएगा उसमें. Right.
Yes sir.
Okay. So let us begin then. Okay. So today we will try something. We are trying something new. Let us see if that works or not. So today we are going to do a compression test. We might also try a bending test on wax sample. And we have not done it before. I don't think anyone has done it before. So we will see how it works. Okay. But before that, let us discuss about that Young's modulus thing. So you can see the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
So share the screen and so now it should be everything should be okay. Okay, fine. So I hope every one of you have followed the idea that you get a lot of data when you do the tensile testing. So it depends what is the recording speed of the machine. And therefore analyzing that amount of data is always better. It's always better to do it by some coding language because you don't want to do it in Excel. Excel has its own limits. So there are various ways of selecting data which I have explained, and then you select some of the data and then you do the analysis. So what we explained last time was that if you have the value of force which comes out from the machine, and you have what we call it is POW LL. No, I'm speaking POW. It's VLLD. The symbol in German is POW. VLLD. I don't know why it is called V, but maybe in some other language, but it represents load line displacement. LLD is load line displacement. Okay, what is load line? Load line is the line along the actuator. So when you have a UTM, so you usually have an upper frame, and then you have something like this, and grips, some kind of grip is there, and then you have a sample here, and then you have a lower frame. So this, okay, so this along this line, this is the axis of your machine's axis of the actuator. Okay, so this is called load line, and the displacement which is happening, which occurs along this line, is called load line displacement. So you will see this term in other tests also, which are performed on the same machine. So on tensile testing, on compression testing, on fracture toughness, creep, all those kind of testing, you will see load line displacement term coming up. So we have force value, we have displacement value. Apart from that, we have time value, and time is not important here as long as we are doing metallic sample. But as soon as we hit some deformation which is time dependent, then we'll have to incorporate the effect of time. All right, so we have force, we have displacement, we have time, and then we take the representative data, and from that you calculate the values of stresses and strain. Engineering. So, and this part is pretty clear that this is initial area, and this is column, so column number 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So column number 5 will be equal to column number 2 divided by the initial length L0, right? So you get engineering stress and strain, and then you get true stress and strain from that, which you must have calculated, so that is not very difficult. But how many of you know that to what extent you can actually use that formula? So 6
Until UTS.
until UTS, and why?
Sir, because after that you told us that there are voids present, and hence the
Yes.
volume isn't constant.
Yeah. So until UTS, you can have this equals to, so sigma T is equal to sigma engineering into 1 plus strain engineering, and this is equal to natural logarithm of 1 plus engineering strain. So this you can do until UTS for metallic samples. You cannot do it for polymers, because in polymers volume is not constant even before UTS. So that is that. But I am doubting why one of you said that you are getting different Young's modulus for true stress strain value. So that I have to check, because I don't think that should happen. So if I have to find out the slope, and so we are dealing, if you have to find out Young's modulus, I have to be in the linear part. So there I have sigma engineering is linearly related to the strain engineering. And if I change this to true stress, okay, so let me write it for true stress. So sigma T is equal to elastic modulus into strain, true strain. And sigma T, now I replace it with sigma engineering into 1 plus strain engineering equals E dash into natural logarithm of 1 plus epsilon engineering. Okay, so this is what I will get. And I can replace sigma engineering by E into E engineering. No? So sigma engineering I replace with E and epsilon E into 1 plus epsilon E equals E dash ln 1 plus epsilon E. So these two will be equal only when this is equal to that. And would that be possible? I don't think so. But maybe for smaller values it could be. For smaller values it could be same. But obviously not for all values.
Sir, for small
Right. So
values, it
this
was
one will
coming
come.
more or less equal.
Yeah, for smaller values, I think it will be. If no, so I cannot. No, I cannot do that. I cannot cancel it out. There is no log here. So 1 plus epsilon e will be equal to exponential of epsilon e plus epsilon e squared. Yeah, so you might get different values. Okay, fine. Fine. So today we are going to discuss a little bit about machine compliance, about which I told you what it is in very brief, because machine itself is deforming. So machine is deforming. So the amount of strain which we are getting, let us focus on engineering strain only. And engineering strain, so it's total strain. It's complete total strain which you are getting from delta L by L naught. So this strain is comprising of elastic strain due to sample plus elastic strain due to machine plus plastic strain of the sample. And I'm not writing plastic strain of machine because machine will not be deforming plastically, because machine's dimensions are larger, and we usually make this dog bone shaped this is not the problem, stylus. Okay, sample, because I want to, so for the same amount of force which is being applied on the sample, I want to have higher stresses here because my area is smaller, and I want to have lower stresses on the other part of the sample. If I don't do it, sample will break from the grips, because because you are holding it, you are already causing some stresses there. And in order to avoid initiation of plasticity, we want to keep always the weak point in the sample, in the gauge length somewhere, so that plasticity is not induced in the other areas. So plastic deformation will not happen in the grips, and obviously it will not happen in the machine because machine components are even bigger in the areas. Okay, so one thing, that you shouldn't test a sample which is bigger than the load train of the UTS, load train of the UTM, because that will cause the machine to deform in a bad way. So that is why there is no plastic strain of the machine. I have elastic strain only. So this part I cannot differentiate. Okay, this dissociation I cannot do, in order to do it, I would have to know the elastic modulus of my material before doing the test. Only then I can find out how much elastic strain is coming from the machine, right? So the total strain which I'm calculating from delta L by L naught is equal to, if suppose I know what is the elastic modulus of my sample, then this will be simply, don't have to write whole thing. So engineering stress divided by elastic modulus of the sample. Okay. Plus this part is already there. This part I want to find out. And plastic strain is simply, plastic strain I can calculate from the sample. So what I do is, first from this total strain, I remove the whole elastic part. Sigma divided by E. Now, what is this E? This E is the total. So sample plus machine. Okay. So suppose this is what you are getting, sample plus machine. This is what you are getting. You are getting approximately 20 GPa, right? So from the data, which the value which you are getting is the elastic modulus of both sample and machine, because both of them are elastically deforming. So that is what is 20 GPa, and if you divide it, so you get the whole elastic part of the strain, then you remove it from the total strain, so you get only plastic strain. So this part is there. This part, suppose I know the Young's modulus of the material, then I can calculate what is the machine compliance, what is the strain because of the machine, and then once I know this value, then I can subtract that from the total strain. So I'll have to do a lot of back calculation. So once you calculate this value, then you subtract that from the total strain, and then you get the true or the total strain of the sample only. Okay. And when you plot this with respect to stress, then you will get the original Young's modulus. But this is not good, because in order to find this, you have to use the real Young's modulus of the material. So there is no way to find out what is the Young's modulus of the material, because in order to find that out, you will have to remove the thing which is happening due to machine. Is there any way to do it? Do you think it is possible to somehow not take into account the elastic deformation of machine? So measure exactly the strain which is happening in the sample. Is there a way of doing it? Can you think of any way? Yeah, Charvak, you want to say something?
So no idea about this.
Okay, no issues. So we use an instrument which is called extensometer, and that has clips on the sample, and it has a strain gauge. So it's a part of instrumentation. You have a Wheatstone bridge kind of thing inside, and then you have, so as soon as the clips which are there, once they get compressed, because you have fixed it on the sample, so as the sample diameter will decrease as you elongate it, so they will compress, and these clips will also get compressed like this, right? And this will cause the resistance on each of these clips. You have strain gauges which has measured amount of resistance with it, and that changes when they bend. So once they bend in compression, the value of their resistance will change, and there is a Wheatstone bridge inside, and from that so there is a calibration involved, and with that you can estimate how much diameter decrease has happened. It will also work if in compression, so if it increases. So this is how you measure the exact deformation which is happening on the sample. So when you do that, you are not measuring anything which is coming because of the machine, right? And by using this instrument, you can calculate directly only the strain which is because of the sample and not because of the machine. Okay, but extensometer usually has limits because you want to use extensometer every time you do the test, unless you have a lot of money and you can destroy extensometer after every test. So in order to do that, usually what is done is that we remove the extensometer after 2% of the total deformation. So within 2%, usually metallic materials will hit plasticity. And so the Young's modulus can be calculated in the elastic region only. So you don't need to have the extensometer data in the plastic part, right? So in that case, what will be happening is that from the test, you will get F, you will get load line displacement time, and you will also get the extensometer extension. So that is also diameter then. So delta D you will get. And from this delta D, you can calculate the strain, right? And that strain data will be only until certain value of deformation, because then you remove the extensometer. So what you do is you only use these data, and that data will be in the elastic region. So you will always have slope, and that slope will be the value of Young's modulus. Okay, is this clear? Is this part clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what we did in the data, and usually it is observed for metallic materials, that you get 10% or 20% of the real Young's modulus value when you include also the machine compliance. But this has no logic. Maybe it happens because all the UTMs are made up of similar material and similar dimensions, so more or less they always have the same amount of effect. Okay, so what we did in our analysis was that you calculated stress and strain, and then from the total strain you subtract the complete elastic part. This is what you did. This is what we asked you to do, right? So then you get only plastic part, and then you plot it. So when you plot stress versus plastic strain, you will not see any slope because elastic part is gone already. So you will get something like this. And this usually should be, ideally should be the yield strength, but it is not the standard way of calculating yield strength. You know what is the standard way of calculating yield strength. So usually you have to plot stress versus strain of sample only, no machine. And well, actually you can have machine compliance included in it. It will not cause any problem. Okay, see what will happen if I have sample plus machine, and if I have only sample, is that the slope will change. Okay, the slope will change. And the standard way of finding out the yield strength is you take 2%, 0.2% offset. You take 0.2% offset. So that means you go 0.002 on this axis, somewhere here. And then you draw a parallel. So if you are plotting sample plus machine or only sample, you are shifting parallel to the initial slope. So suppose I'm using this curve, so I will shift parallel to that. And wherever it hits, that is my yield strength. If I'm using second curve, then I will shift parallel to that, and that will be my yield strength, and both will be same. Both should be same. Okay, because it is logical, because if you remove from both the curves, if you remove the elastic part, both of them will be looking exactly over each other. Okay. So I don't know why it's not working. Where is it? So it will be exactly over this one. And this you can do, okay? This you can do yourself and check. So I will tell you what is the Young's modulus of the data which I have given. The Young's modulus of the material which I have given to you is 210 gigapascals. Okay, so you use this value to find out the strain only because of sample, and you already have strain because of sample and machine. That part you already have, right? And then you calculate 0.2%. So this is called 0.2% offset, but nobody uses this term. It is called yield strength only. So you calculate this yield strength value. Yeah, you calculate this yield strength value for both these type of strain. You can calculate strain only because of sample, because now I have given you the real Young's modulus of the material, and this one you already had. So you calculate yield, you might have calculated the yield strength for this one already. So you calculate yield strength for both of these curves and report the differences, if any. I mean, the differences could be there, but it should be not. It should be marginal. Okay. Okay, fine. So, is there any question so far?
No, sir.
Okay, so I think we are done with the machine compliance part, and now we will start the testing. Is Ayush here? Yeah, Ayush, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Avnish. Okay, so the setup is ready?
Yeah, sir. Here is a little bit confusion.
Okay, fine. Okay.
So,
Okay, fine. So what we can do is you take maybe 15-20 minutes break.
yes,
All
sir.
of you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Not you, Avnish.
Yeah.
So the students, you take a break of 15-20 minutes. Let us fix the setup for the testing, and then we will resume back at. So let us resume at 10:15 again. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I had one doubt, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I read a relation that the summation of normal stresses in the xy plane, that is always equal to the summation of normal stresses when the plane is rotated by some angle.
Yeah.
So is that always true, sir?
Yeah, it is an invariant. The sum of the diagonal term is an invariant.
Okay.
So that is called the trace of the. See, if you want to visualize it physically, what is happening is that the trace of the stress tensor, trace meaning the sum of the diagonal.
Yes, sir.
Sum of the diagonal is 3 times of the mean stress. What is the mean stress? You sum it up, then you divide it by 3.
Yes, sir.
What does it say? It says these 3 diagonal values are the normal stresses. Apart from that, everything is trying to shear the material. But these stresses are not causing shear. These stresses are causing either expansion or compression, right? So the part of the stress which is trying to either compress it or it is trying to either expand it is not going to change if you change the coordinates. Right? So if I have a ball in my hand and I'm compressing it, you look at in any angle possible, the amount of compression will not change.
Yes.
Okay. So that is the idea. So the trace, the mean stress, which represents, so if it is negative, then it represents pressure, hydrostatic pressure. And if it is positive, it represents hydrostatic tension. Okay. So it's like a balloon, which is inside a very viscous liquid when the mean stress is negative. So the balloon is being compressed from all the sides. And when it is positive, it means that you have a very expanding gas, or you have a gas inside the balloon and you are heating that gas somehow. So the balloon is expanding in all the direction. So that is hydrostatic tension. You understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So we will resume at 10:15, 10:15, 10:20. So we can resume at 10:20, and till then we'll probably fix the specimen. We'll do the testing. Okay.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. See you.